Love is more than just a game for two. Two in love can make it. Take my heart and please don't break it. Love was made for me and you.
Hey, welcome to WBGR Sports Network and the Tom the Bomb Sports Talk Show. And this is the... That's great. Hey, welcome to WBGR Sports Network and the Tom the Bomb Sports Talk Show. And this is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. If you don't think it's a great day, just try missing one. And we, L-O-V-E, love sports on the Tom the Bomb Show. I'm your host, Tommy Wood. My co-host today is my main man, Felix Bassett in the house. I know you guys get excited when Felix is here, but we got another fantastic show for you. As usual, we want to thank God for the new things that he's doing for us in 2024. Remember, our theme for the year is fixed purpose. You know, when you keep your gaze on the path, it'll allow you to ignore daily distractions. Hey, we got no trivia. We got no poll questions. Man, there's plenty to watch today. You got NIT going on. You got the women's tournament, and we're going to talk about the March Madness for the men's a little bit later in the show, but there's a ton to watch. Hey, gang, I'm so excited to announce the launching of the Tom the Bomb Sports and Travel Entertainment website. We're going to show you how to travel better and pay less for cruises, air travel, hotels, rental cars, themed destinations like Disney, Carnival, or Viking cruises with the guaranteed best rates. Golf getaways around the world in less than 80 days to places like the Masters. How about the best seats at your favorite concert, Broadway show? And of course, main events like the Super Bowl, World Series, the NBA Finals, NASCAR. How about Wimbledon? I know Kimmy loves Wimbledon. We got you covered from A to Z on all your vacation, sports, and entertainment travel to your heart's desire. But for those of you who just can't wait, you can go right now to tommywood.inteletravel.com right now if you've got to book any kind of travel, hotel, rental car, vacation, entertainment, or sports to your heart's desire. So hey, let's get right into the show. We got a good one for you. Let's get right into it. Alrighty. So listen, what we're going to be talking about today, it's kind of like pressing news. We're going to be starting off talking about the Shohei Ohtani scandal. Okay, and at this point, it's a scandal. Okay. Man, it's just amazing what's going on. So how I want to get into this is right now there's an investigation going on, but I want to kind of frame this conversation with Felix is the 5 questions about Major League Baseball's investigation about him and his interpreter. So let me just kind of get you caught up for you guys who haven't been following the story. Let me just kind of get you guys caught up here. Okay, so the newest Dodger star and his longtime interpreter and friend, Epi Murzara, are at the center of attention of an investigation into sports gambling debts and what Ohtani's attorneys are calling a massive theft. Okay, so let's start off like this. Okay, so what do we know? What do we know? What has the story? Why has the story changed so much? And what's next? Okay, that's what we want to talk about. What's next? Ohtani, Major League Baseball two-way player and singular sensation, has hogged center stage the whole offseason about where he would sign and play. He's the only player in the history of the Major League Baseball to win a second unanimous MVP award. He signed a record-setting $700 million contract with the Los Angeles Dodgers after a free agent sweepstake, okay? Then just as spring started, the winter of Ohtani's content turned to discontent. Oh, look at Tom getting poetic, Felix. Following his first game, the Los Angeles Times and ESPN reported that Ohtani's attorney had said that the newly debuted Dodger was the victim of a massive theft. Okay? So, the alleged thief was Ohtani's longtime interpreter and close confidant friend, Epi Murzara. At least $4.5 million was wired from Ohtani's bank account to an associate, Matthew Bauer, a bookmaker, basically a bookie in California, who's currently under federal investigation because of sports betting is illegal in the state of California. However, virtually all the other details, including who wired the money and why, are much, much more murkier, okay? And that's what we're going to get to. Now, by contrast, the stakes couldn't be clearer. Nothing less than the career and the reputation of baseball's best player, its highest paid player, and its most famous player, not to mention the sport's perceived integrity in an era of ever-tightening ties between sports league and sports books betting, which we're definitely going to talk about that, Felix. So let's get to the first lie. What do you say? Yeah. Let's get to the first lie. Okay, so the first lie, Felix, was that Ohtani had helped pay off Ms. Harar's massive sports gambling debt. Then it switched to a second story that directly contradicted the first story, that Ohtani had no knowledge of the debt and hadn't transferred the funds. Now, the flip-flop has fueled conversations and conspiracy theories fanned further by Mirzar's firing and the replacement by the Dodgers. Now, an AP report that Mirzar and Bauer are under criminal investigation by the IRS, but not Ohtani. Okay, now Major League Baseball has initiated a formal process to investigate the matter. Folks, there isn't going to be a happy ending here. Okay, this is a mess all the way through, all around for everyone involved. So, Felix, let's jump into these 5 questions that I feel like that Major League Baseball has got to ask and have answered. Okay, so the first important question is, were any of the bets placed on baseball? That's the first and most important question. Let's go right there first, because if you can remember, I always say this: if Pete Rose isn't in the Hall of Fame, there shouldn't be a Hall of Fame. Okay, because Pete Rose he did bet on baseball, but he never bet on his team. But Pete Rose, when he did this, he did it as a manager. He never did it as a player. And Pete Rose shouldn't be put in the Hall of Fame because as a manager, but he should be put in the Hall of Fame because of his play. So if his play is not in judgment,
right,
then my feeling is that Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. But they're saying it doesn't matter. He's the manager and he bet on baseball, which is why he could never, ever, ever be in the Hall of Fame. So the first question for Ohtani is, were any of the bets placed on baseball? Mm-hmm. Now, before we get into this, let's just say this. You know, in America, you're innocent until proven guilty, unless you're a minority. Did he just say that on the air? Yeah, he did. But come on, all right. But in America, you're innocent until proven guilty. Okay. So here's the deal. Ohtani could have known nothing about this. You know what? Let's get to the questions, and then we'll give our own personal comments. So the first question is, were any bets placed on baseball? That's the first question we got to ask, and they answer. The second question, Felix, is what's with the conflicting stories? You know, the first lie, the second lie is contradicting the first lie. That's the second question. The third question is, will Manfred, who is the commissioner of Major League Baseball, give Ohtani preferential treatment? We're going to get to that. The fourth question is, will this scandal inspire a larger sports gambling reckoning? That's a whole show within itself, which we're going to talk about. And then the last question is, when are we actually going to get some real answers? So one of the things, the last question is, there is a press conference that Ohtani is being, I think you said it's going to be at 5 o'clock, Felix?
5 o'clock Eastern time.
5 o'clock Eastern time. Ohtani has volunteered to come out and but here's the deal. And Felix, I've been talking about this before the show. I just want to say all of this is just marketing spin. It's all just marketing spin. Because number one, He's not taking any questions. Is that correct?
That's the most important detail of the press conference. The fact that he's not taking any questions means that there's something that he doesn't want out there just yet for one reason or another. That gives him a controlled platform. That makes him kind of the demagogue of it. So only what he says is what we know about. But I didn't mean to run on with that.
No. That's what you're here today for. Okay, so those are the 5 questions that we want to cover, and man, I'm telling you, man, this right here can literally be the whole show and nothing else, because this is a mess. And here's the deal, man, this guy's the best baseball player we've ever seen, because there's never ever been the mythical is like, okay, we haven't seen this since Babe Ruth, and Babe Ruth was one of the greatest sluggers of all time, and a lot of people don't know that Babe Ruth was a very, very good pitcher, but Babe Ruth has never been the pitcher that Shohei Ohtani is. Shohei Ohtani is a number 1 ace on anybody's staff in the major leagues right now, and he's in the top 2 or 3 sluggers in all of baseball. I mean, this is like Little League, man. When you got that one kid that just dominates everything, he pitches, he hits. That's who Shohei Ohtani is. We've never in our lives seen a player like this, a legitimate 2-way player. So here's where we're going. So were any bets placed on baseball? So let's start off. Let's get back to the first lie that Ohtani had helped pay off Mizuha's massive sports gambling debt. Okay, now it amounted to $4.5 million. Felix, I love you.
All right.
I'm not paying off no $4.5 million gambling debt of yours.
And
whether I love you or not. Okay, and don't get it wrong, this guy is just not his interpreter and competent. These guys are very, very good friends. He's known Ohtani since Ohtani was a teenager. He's actually about 10 years older than Ohtani, and he's definitely his confidant. Last year, Ohtani made $65 million.
Right.
I was doing my research and I found out that his interpreter makes about $500,000 a year. That's a pretty good gig, ain't it? To be able to interpret somebody and I'll pick up your laundry and go get your lunch and stuff if you pay me $500,000 a year. So he was making a good salary.
Right.
But here's the thing. $4.5 million. Now so let's talk about this betting thing. First of all, it's illegal betting. So it's not like you can go out to Fairmont Park where Uncle Zoob works and place a bet through the window. Those kind of betting, you pay up front, they give you your ticket, and then if you win, you go in and cash your ticket. This is illegal betting with a bookie. So what happens is you have a line of credit. So if you win, they send you the money. If you lose, you have to pay them. Okay? So the story is that it's his interpreter's gambling and betting problem. So if you're an illegal bookie, why are you going to give an interpreter $4.5 million worth of credit? That's kind of fishy, though. You know that old saying where there's smoke, there's a fire? That's kind of, and even though he makes good money, because it's reported that it's possible his salary could have been as high as $500,000 a year, but $500,000 a year and $4.5 million in gambling debt?
yeah, it doesn't add up.
Doesn't add up.
Jump
in here, man.
In other words, I just want to put it into perspective. It's one thing to say that someone has a gambling debt or they spent X amount of money and they don't make a certain amount of money. Like, we all know someone who probably spends more than they should on their favorite hobby or their favorite thing. Maybe it's sneakers, what have you. But I want you to think about this. Right?
It's sneakers for Precious. She's got every sneaker in her closet.
And I understand that 100%. But from a logical standpoint, if someone makes a certain amount of money and they've incurred a debt or they're spending more than they actually have, I just want you to think about that. Number one, how is that even possible? Two, I understand it's based on credit, so it's not 100% based on what you have stored away. But I just, from a logical standpoint, is someone going to continue betting after they owe more than 5 times, actually close to 10 times their yearly income? Are they going to continue betting? Better yet, is the creditor going to allow someone to keep betting without paying it off after they've incurred even a fraction of that? So to your point, it just doesn't even make sense. If you actually look at the details, look at the numbers, you can tell the whole thing 9 times out of 10, this doesn't happen anywhere. So there's something that Ohtani, based on what he's doing, does not want out there for one reason or another.
Okay. So then the story, it switched to the second story, like I said, that totally contradicted the first story, that Ohtani had no knowledge of the debt and he hadn't transferred the funds, but $4.5 million had come out of his account. Now, how does that much money come out of your account and you don't know anything about it? So here's the deal. So the speculation, and this is just speculation, because we want to be very, very clear. Shohei Ohtani could be totally innocent of all of this. Yeah.
For legal reasons, we have to say that. We don't want to be slapped with libel or, spreading false rumors.
He could totally be innocent of all of this. But $4.5 million came out of his bank account, and it went to, what's the guy's name? Matthew Bauer, who's a bookie. So the question is, how did the interpreter get that much money out of Ohtani's account without Ohtani knowing nothing about it? How is that possible? How is that possible? When you make Ohtani made $65 million last year. So, you probably could steal $40,000 or $50,000 and it could go unnoticed.
Right.
You might even could steal $100,000 or $200,000 and it go unnoticed. But $4.5 million? Man, that sounds like Judas to me, man.
I'll put it to you like this. There's some billionaires, probably the man who owns the Dodgers, wouldn't notice that that's gone. I mean, I understand that the more money you have, the more losing a certain amount isn't as much of a problem to you, but there's definitely a certain number. Logically speaking.
Well, my experience is that people who have that kind of money, they track it down to the penny.
Absolutely.
Ask Jackie how much is in her 401k.
That's a seemingly paradoxical dynamic. The more money someone makes, the more careful they are with their money. Conversely, for some odd reason, when someone has less money, they're more likely to spend it. So there are a number of factors to go into that. It's not a sociology or economics class. We want to keep it at the Dodgers and Ohtani right now. So
okay,
yeah.
I told you this is a mess all the way around for everybody. So okay, so we know that there's some, and then the other thing is when this, I want to get this out there. When this story first popped up, and the Los Angeles Times and ESPN was getting ready to drop the story, Ohtani's interpreter came forward and he gave a 90-minute interview confessing all, saying that it was him. First he said it was his gambling debt, and then after he said it was his gambling debt, that Ohtani had helped pay off his gambling debt, then he said, then the Dodgers reported that it was a massive theft. So this is my point. This is all marketing spin, because okay, you got a gambling debt. You're my boy. I'm rich. I'm gonna help Felix pay off his gambling debt. But when we realize that the gambling debt is $4.5 million, that's not just a gambling debt, okay? And then how does Felix have that much money? And he's just my caddy. You know what I'm saying? How is it that he has that much money? So that's when the story started to change, and this is where people are like, wait a minute, this ain't adding up. We ain't mathing this right, okay? Something's going on, okay? So we need to know, was any bets placed on baseball? That's the first thing. What's up with the conflicting stories, because the stories are now conflicting and contradicting each other. Let's get to the third question. Will Bob Manfred on Major League Baseball give Ohtani preferential treatment? Absolutely, 1,000%. Listen, I'm going to tell you guys what's going to happen ahead. The press conference is supposed to be today at 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Central. Man, Major League Baseball getting ready to sweep this story under the rug.
Oh, absolutely.
Look, man. It's all about money, man. It's all about the money. And like I said, this guy, he's not just the biggest baseball star. This guy's one of the biggest stars in the world. You know, when you start talking about Japan and all of that stuff and all the eyes that are on the Major League Baseball because of Shohei Ohtani, you know, and the kid is phenomenal. He's the best baseball player I've ever seen, and I love baseball. If this comes out that Ohtani had anything to do with it, his career is over. It's over. His career is just starting, and it's over. So here's just what I'm saying. You know, where there's smoke, there's fire. If I get my interpreter to fall on the sword and say he did it, what's going to happen to him? Well, the Dodgers fired him. That's the first thing. So he has been fired. Now he's under investigation with the IRS, you know, because, you know, that amount of money, you got to pay taxes, that type of thing. So that's something that he could go to prison for. But, you know, if you go to prison for 3 to 5, even 10 years, and my man makes $65 million a year, don't you think I'm going to take care of him when he get out of prison? Man, this has been going on for years, man. I take the I take the plea, I go to prison, you stay out because you're the money maker. Come on, is this making sense? Is this adding up? But if this falls on Ohtani, that's the golden goose. That's the guy who's making $65 million a year. If it falls on him, his career is gone. It's over. The $65 million is gone. So we can't let him take the fall. Now, that's just personal between Ohtani and his interpreter. Let's talk about Major League Baseball, because that's what we're talking about. Will Manfred and Major League Baseball give Ohtani preferential treatment? Absolutely. They've done it all along. They've done it with the steroids. They knew Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa was on steroids. They did it just recently with the Astros and the cheating. Listen, the Astros weren't the only team that was cheating, stealing sign signals, but what they did is you got to have a fall guy. You got to have a scapegoat. And Major League Baseball made the Houston Astros the scapegoat. The Astros weren't the only team that was doing that. So they did it with the steroids, with the steroid scandal. They just did it recently with the Houston Astros. You think Major League Baseball is going to bury their own golden goose? Not happening. What's your thoughts on it, Felix?
For those of you unfamiliar with baseball, I have a bit of a case study for you. 2 words, 10 years ago, Tom Brady. Basically, I want you all to think about this. Tom Brady, even after the multiple times that he was caught cheating, the New England Patriots were caught cheating. So we're just talking about the times in which they were caught. 2007, Week 1. You could talk about the Deflategate with the Colts in that 2014 AFC Championship. And probably the most comedically, oh my goodness, the funniest one ever. They were caught cheating against the Bengals, who were winless at the time they were facing them at the midway point of the 2019 season. Defending Super Bowl champions against the winless Cincinnati Bengals, and you're caught cheating. So at that point, I have to put an asterisk. That's just me personally. I have to put an asterisk next to anything that the Patriots have done. And, like, you know, but that somehow is not mentioned, right? So, to your point, if you have a proverbial golden goose, from a PR standpoint, from a money-making standpoint, you're not going to want to get rid of that. I mean, sure, you're going to hold them accountable to some degree. You're going to punish them. The NFL didn't let off Brady scotch-free. He served a suspension like a whole month out of the beginning of the 2016 season. But from a PR standpoint, if you go as far as quote-unquote canceling the person, you go as far as, how do I put it, tarring and feathering them, you're not only hurting the person's career, you're hurting your product, you're hurting the entire league. So the whole point that you're making, Ohtani, he's not going to get off scot-free if evidence is found on him. He's going to get some sort of suspension, he might get a hefty fine. But what's going to happen right after this, no one's going to talk about it, they're going to move on from it, and they're going to try to proceed as much as they possibly can after this. And I can use examples, I can use endless examples, but what I can say is, again, they're not going to want to drag this any further than they really have to.
You know, since you mentioned football in the NFL, I can give you another example. You know, if you can remember back in the day, you know, when you say, if you say who is the greatest defensive player that ever played in the NFL, well, you know, there's a few names comes right up. Reggie White, Lawrence Taylor, you know, those names pop up in that conversation.
No Daryl
Reggie
Green,
White,
go on.
Defensive player. No, come on, man. No, Darryl Green. No. Defensive player, okay? I know he was on defense, but those two names pop up. Well, Lawrence Taylor was caught in a really, really bad, we'll just say drug problem with the New York Giants, And but it wasn't just Lawrence Taylor. There were other players involved. Some of them I know personally, okay? And all of those other players were literally blackballed out of the NFL, but not Lawrence Taylor. He got a slap on the wrist. He did some probationary work, but you can't get rid of one of the greatest defensive players of all time in the NFL. So a lot of the other guys that were involved in that, they were gone out of the NFL, never to be seen again, but not Lawrence Taylor. They didn't do it with Tom Brady. They're not going to do it with Shohei Ohtani. This guy, he's not just bigger than baseball. He's like one of the biggest sports figures in the world, just period. And it's not going to happen. So, look, let's get to this next question. Will this scandal inspire a larger sports gambling reckoning? Now, we've been talking on and off through the year on the Tom the Bomb Show. This sports betting is going to ruin sports. It's going to ruin the NFL. It's going to ruin NBA basketball. It's going to ruin Major League Baseball. It's going to ruin everything. There's already, before legal sports betting took place, there was already the thought that some of these games were fixed. If you go to YouTube right now, there's a segment on YouTube where you can, if you go to YouTube and put in search, you can put in fixed Super Bowls, and about 5 or 6 or 7 Super Bowl games will come up where they have NFL players talking about how the Super Bowl was fixed. And this is before sports gambling. I mean, seriously, if you guys, the guys who want to do the research and have time, you go to YouTube and put in fixed Super Bowls, and you're going to be shocked. They actually name the Super Bowl. Super Bowl this, Super Bowl that, Super Bowl that. And then they have actual NFL players who played in those Super Bowls telling you why they know that those games were fixed. And this is before sports gambling, sports betting. Now that, sports gambling, that everybody, the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, are all in bed with this legal sports gambling, I know it's going to ruin the sport. What's your thoughts on that, Felix?
What I will have to say, I'm thinking from a different angle of ruining sports. So I'm thinking you're going to have sports gambling, and of course where you have gambling, you're going to have people, unfortunately, with gambling problems. And then it's going to turn to a point where there are going to be PSAs, warnings about gambling. People may become more conservative about how much they're willing to gamble. And I think that right now it's a new trend. It's catching on. It's a new way. It's boosting viewership for now. So like you look at leagues that typically don't get a lot of viewership. Cough, cough, NHL. So you're talking about people who are watching hockey saying, oh, I'm betting on this game. I'm betting on a Lightning game. All of a sudden I'm hearing people who used to make fun of me for watching hockey when I was in middle school talking about how many hockey games they're betting on. And I'm like, hey, do you know who some of these players are? I mean, yeah, I did the research on it. This player's got that. So it looks good now. But the thing is, you're having people, how do I put it? If you look at sports, what the main selling point of sports was in the beginning. It was loyalty to a specific franchise, wanting to tune in, game out, and just tuning in for the sake of tuning in. It wasn't something meant as something for someone to do with supplemental income, like a pyramid scheme. Like how do I word this? A risky sort of supplemental income, somewhat like a pyramid scheme. What happens? Some people are going to cash out. Some people are going to stay in it. But the vast majority of people, after a while, they're going to realize they don't have a return on investment. They're going to leave. If you're trying to make your main selling point something that is as tentative as sports betting, that can really shoot the popularity of sports or how much it grows between this generation and the next. If you have a whole generation growing up on, oh, okay, I'm going to watch the sports just for the betting, then after a while when they can't bet on it anymore, they're not going to have a loyalty to a team like me, for example. I grew up watching the Commanders since I was a small child, so I haven't made a cent from watching their games, but I'm going to tune in every week. But if I'm betting on it, and after a while I'm realizing, hey, I just bet the entire value of my house or something, or I just bet a whole mortgage on it, maybe I should stop. I mean, I would hope you'd stop before that, but there's some stories out there, but yeah. So to my point, I think that this could ruin sports in more than one way.
Okay, so let's get to the last question. Will we actually get some real answers? Let me just start off by saying this: Ohtani's contract is over $700 million. The answer to that question is no. Have we gotten any questions? Have we gotten any real questions and answers to the Kennedy assassination? No. We're not going to get real answers to this either. It's just worth too much money. He's worth too much money to too many different people. It's not just about him. You know, he could be totally innocent or he could be a degenerate. We don't know. But here's what we do know. It's not just affecting him. If he goes down, this takes Major League Baseball down. You know, what do they say? Not one person or one guy is bigger than the game. Is that what they say?
Right.
Yeah, he's too big to fail. You know. So will we actually get some real answers? I doubt it. This dog and pony show, that Major League Baseball investigation that they're doing, it's going to come up with the same thing about the cheating scandal with the Astros and about the steroids with Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa. Man, that saved baseball. If you remember that summer, Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa literally saved baseball because that was coming right out of the strike. And a lot of people weren't happy about it, and a lot of people didn't come back to baseball because of the strike, because they were mad at the owners and the players. But when Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire started hitting all those home runs, it captures the imagination of the country, and everybody got caught up in the home runs. And they saved Major League Baseball. And that's why Major League Baseball just swept it under the rug. They're going to do the same thing with Shohei Ohtani. You want to close us out on that?
I'll say this, and here's another one. This is going to be for the WWE fans out there. And I know that out of all the sports leagues, probably the most you hear about athletes outside of them being on the field, on the court, or on the ice, out of any sport you hear more about personal lives, it's pro wrestling. Like that for some odd reason, pro wrestling fans, or Marxists are called, they're really invested into the wrestlers' lives outside the ring. So I want you, all the Marks out there, to understand this. A lot of your favorite wrestlers, there's whole YouTube video case studies on them, have done and said some pretty horrific things that you would reasonably think they'd face some sort of punishment for. You'd reasonably think that the WWE would want to completely distance themselves from them after this has been confirmed about them, after they said this on camera. And there's a certain example I'm thinking of, prime example, let's just say his initials are HH. Let's just say that, I'm just saying they gave him his punishment because what he did was egregious. Like that's an outlier because what he did was egregious. That made it to the mainstream. So they swept that under, they gave him his punishment for the meantime. What happens? A couple years later, they wait for it to kind of die out of the mainstream media. Then they can drag him back in, and all of a sudden, that's okay. There are a couple of other examples I can use out there, but hey, I mean, I could go a long way with this. But in short, the WWE or pro wrestling, what they like to do, they love using nostalgia as a main selling point. So they can't have your favorite wrestlers from the 80s, 90s, so on and so forth, have it known what's been said behind closed doors, or at least, if it's been recorded, if it wasn't on live TV. They don't have it out there because all of a sudden, that's a few million down the drain in potential advertising revenue. So I'd say that, like, pro wrestling fans, you should understand this more than any other fan base out there.
Alrighty. Hey, listen, let's go ahead and let's take a break right here. And then when we come back, we're going to come back talking about what I thought we were going to be starting the show off, which is March Madness, which is Tom the Bomb's favorite time of the year. So, hey, Corey, let's take a break, and then we'll come back. When we're coming back, we're going to be talking about the NCAA Men's March Madness and the Sweet 16 matchups. We'll be right back.
When it comes to cost and quality, you simply cannot do better than Window Nation. For about half the cost of national brands, you get equal if not better quality, saving you thousands of dollars. Right now, get 2 free windows with every 2 you buy. There's no limit. Plus, put no money down, make no payments, and pay no interest for 24 months. Get a free in-home estimate and we'll give you a free gas card. Go to windownation.com for additional details or call 866-95-NATION.
Sheltered by the Sea of Cortez, Danzante Bay is a pure and peaceful oasis, an uncrowded retreat where your options are as vast as your views. If you're seeking a vacation that defines luxury and the true relaxation, look no further than Villa del Palmar at the islands of Loreto. A splendor of true Mexican hospitality effortlessly blends with rich materials and insatiable comforts to bring guests the ideal home away from home experience. With its quiet beaches, scenic vistas, rich history, and an astounding surrounding natural habitat, you'll feel as though you've been swept off to paradise. Not to be outdone, Reese Jones has crafted TPC Danzante Bay, a brilliant, multi-themed 18-hole golf course that runs over and through valleys, arroyos, dunes, and foothills. From every angle, striking images of the islands of Loreto and the surrounding mountain range take your breath away, while the challenging yet rewarding Baja Golf Course beckons you to return for more. It is an honor and my pleasure to welcome you to the world's most beautiful sunset and so much more.
Talking Windows with Harley and Aaron and special guest Mina.
As a business owner, I only partner with the best.
That's definitely Window Nation.
And experience matters, Harley.
Well, Mina, we have installed over 1 million windows.
And you guys have the best customer service.
Check. 97% customer satisfaction. Plus the best deals.
Now, buy 2 windows, get 2 free with no limit. Plus, put no money down, make no payments, and pay no interest for 24 months.
That's why I'm proud to partner with Window Nation.
The perfect fit.
Hey, look at that picture.
iPhone 250.
And we're back. And this is what we thought we were going to be starting to show off with the NCAA Men's March Madness, the Sweet 16 matchups. So let's get right to Thursday. Well, before we get to Thursday game, man, hasn't the tournament been outstanding, man? This has just been fantastic. You know, it's so funny because I realize that no matter what my wife does, she's a scientist, okay? And everything she does and everything she looks at from a point of view of a scientist. So, and I'm point of making. So we're watching the NCAAs, and you know, I'm watching and I'm enjoying the games, and the games are fantastic. And she's like, you know, it appears to me that the upsets only happen in the early rounds, and the teams that make the big upsets in the early round, once they get to the second round, they come back to themselves and realize who they are, and then they always lose. And I'm like, you putting that much thought into it? I'm just enjoying the game, man. And the games have been absolutely fabulous, man. And this is why you watch it, because you always get that upset. And these teams, you know, like Oakland over Kentucky, man. You know, Kentucky's a great team. They got players that are going to be in the NBA. You can't name one player on the team for Oakland, man. But hey, like I said, here's the difference. Those guys are seniors. Some of them are fifth-year seniors. They're playing against a bunch of young, talented kids from the University of Kentucky who probably only going to play together for 1 year. And I say this over and over and over. The thing that I love about basketball the most is it is truly a team sport. And the best team wins, not the best players. Kentucky clearly has the best players, but that night, Oakland had the best team, and that's what's so great about this tournament, man. You may not have heard of these teams, JMU, but man, these guys can play, man, and on any given night they can slay down and take out the Giants, and that's what the tournament is all about. So let's get to our Sweet 16 matchups. These games are going to be coming up on Thursday, March 28th. Let's start off with number 6, Clemson versus Arizona. Pull it up for me, Corey, if you can. Clemson versus Arizona. Now, Arizona is the number 2 seed overall, and a lot of people felt like Arizona should have been a number 1 seed. There was a lot of, I think UNC, University of North Carolina, was the team that a lot of people didn't like getting the number 1 seed. But Arizona, Iowa State, those were teams that they felt like really could have been number 1 seeds. So this, like I told you guys in the get-go, this particular tournament is pretty much, for the first time in a long time, this tournament is really going to be close to chalk. Like last year, for the first time in the history of the tournament, none of the number 1 seeds made it to the Final Four, and that had never happened before. But this year, you're going to have a lot of top seeds in the Sweet 16, the Grade 8, and the Final Four. So like I said, Arizona is one of those teams that's a number 2 seed, but they're kind of like a 1B seed. It could have been a number 1 seed. So they're going to take on Clemson at 7:09 p.m. on CBS. That's going to be Thursday. Don't count Clemson out, man. They played in a tough conference. It's just really good basketball this time of year. I've always loved the college game because the kids just play harder. They play defense. They're not playing 82 games like in the NBA, which is why the NBA doesn't play defense, load management, okay? But it just doesn't get any better than this. This is the best sporting event in the world. Clemson versus Arizona, like I said, this tournament is going to be chalk. Tom the Bomb likes Arizona here, no doubt. I like Clemson. They're tough. They can win this game, but I'm going with Arizona. You got any thoughts on this one, Clemson and Arizona, Felix?
I would say in a game like this, to your whole point, you mentioned what the NBA is not doing, what a lot of people are complaining about, a lack of defense. And this goes for almost any sport. When you have 2 teams that are playing very competitively, when you have 2 teams that are nearing the championship round or deep in the playoffs, a lot of times it does come down to defense. Which defense can hold on, stand strong. Not so much what team has such a great offense, unless the team's offense is just so many light years or leaps and bounds ahead of their opponent. But in most cases, I think to your point, you did mention defense, and I think that's what it may very well come down to for this matchup.
Okay, let's move on to our next game. The next game is San Diego State versus UConn, the UConn Huskies. San Diego State is a team that plays great defense. They rebound the ball well. They get offensive rebounds and defensive rebounds. But they're going up against UConn, and like I mentioned to you last week, everybody in the world is picking UConn to win it all, and cut down the nets. UConn is what you call Noah's Ark. Okay? What does that mean? UConn is Noah's Ark. UConn has 2 of everything. That's a Noah's Ark team. You know how they parrot the animals up 2 by 2? UConn has 2 of everything. They got shooters, they got rebounders, they got passers, they got defenders, they got blockers, and their bench is deep. They got 2 of everything. UConn is rolling through this tournament, and I've heard people say that nobody will get within 10 or 15 points of UConn. Well, we're going to see. You don't win this game on paper, you win it on the court, but I absolutely like UConn over San Diego State. That game's Thursday, 7:39 p.m. on TBS. TBS is also True TV as well. What's your thought on UConn and San Diego State, Felix?
I would say this. It's pretty much a case of UConn, who's the best team overall, based on what everyone's observing. To your point, it's not just a matter of having talent, but having the depth on the roster. So a lot of times you will see a good team, and you'll see some of the best players on a given team, and you'll wonder, how come this team can't get over the hump? How come this team can't perform well? Cough, cough, Washington Wizards of the NBA. But that goes down. Taking a shot at my own team there.
Hey, I heard UConn could take out the Wizards.
I wouldn't be surprised. So going on about, the whole issue of depth. So essentially when the starters are out, who's going to maintain the lead for you when the starters are not able to perform, when they're on the bench? Who's going to maintain the lead? Who's going to keep the scoring runs active? Who's going to prevent the other team from having scoring runs? Who's going to keep the consistency? So I think that's what the edge UConn has. That's the edge UConn has. And hey, San Diego State, I'll say this. They were surprising last year. They made a deep run last year.
Final Four.
Exactly, for a relatively smaller school. But I don't think that they're going to get past where they were last year. After all, they're facing UConn. I don't they can pull off an upset, but I don't think that's likely against this UConn team.
So what you're saying is you got San Diego State check it out after this game as well?
Yeah.
There you go. Alrighty. Okay, our next game is Alabama versus the University of North Carolina that no longer has Michael Jordan, the team that had a number 1 seed that a lot of people didn't like as a number 1 seed. This is going to be my first number 1 seed to go down. I'm actually going to take Alabama in this game. I like Alabama. I think Alabama is one of those type of teams, kind of like Houston, where their second shot is as good or better than their first shot. I like UNC. UNC has don't get me wrong. UNC can make it to the Final Four because they have what you need in the tournament. To win it all in the tournament, you need a great point guard, and R.J. Davis is that guy. And then you need a great low post as well, and they got that too. So don't get me wrong. UNC could be in the Final Four, but Tom the Bomb's going to take Alabama here. This game is going to be Thursday at 9:39 p.m., and this game is going to be on CBS. Who you like, Felix, Alabama or UNC?
Well, based on what we know, I'd say Alabama looks like a good pick. So, of course, you have a number 1 seed here, but again, a lot of times when you see weaknesses in a number 1 seed, the proverbial buzzsaw always comes up. Sometimes you look at a team that has the best record in football, or maybe they had the best season, and you think to yourself, they barely won these games, or they won games that they shouldn't have won, or they're not as good as so and such team. Usually that weakness gets exposed when they're facing off against a team that's going to play at their highest level in the playoffs. That's in any sport, so Alabama looks like the safe pick here.
Alrighty. And our next game is my University of Illinois Fighting Illini versus the Iowa State Cyclones. Now, the Iowa State Cyclones is also, like Arizona, they're a number 2 seed that a lot of people felt like should have been a number 1 seed. Iowa State has had a really, really good year. Tom the Bomb is definitely picking with his heart there, but I'm going with Illinois, but it's not just with my heart. Illinois, this young man here, he can do it all, man. He's the highest scoring player in the tournament so far through the Sweet 16. He's averaging over 30 points a game, and he can put this team on his back, and he can do it all, man. He gets to the rim. He gets to the rim like an NBA player. He looks like, right now, he looks like an NBA player playing against college guys. That's what he looks like, Felix. Mm-hmm. And that's why he's scoring 30 plus a game. Nobody can stop him from getting to the hole. This is going to be the matchup that I wanted to see. This is going to be the test. You know, traditionally, the Big Ten never, ever does well in this tournament, and particularly my Illinois Fighting Illini. But like I said, I'm picking with my heart. I'm picking the 3 over the 2. Iowa State is clearly the favorite. And like I said, this tournament has been chalk. And so if you want to stay chalk, probably the safe pick is to take Iowa State, but Tom the Bomb is going with the Illinois Fighting Illini. That game's going to be Thursday at 10:09 p.m., and that game will also be on TBS, which is also True TV. Who do you like, Illinois or Iowa State, Felix?
I think here it comes down to coaching. Now, I would say this. Typically in the sport of basketball, you can't have one player carry an entire team, no matter how great they are. You look at LeBron James' performance in the 2018 NBA Finals, averaged about 40 points per game, and guess what? He got swept in that series. So sometimes you can't rely on one player to carry the entire team, but I would say this, it's college basketball. The average scores are a lot lower, so that 30 points per game, that carries a lot more weight in the NCAA than it would in the NBA. But here's my caveat. It comes down to coaching for Iowa State, because if they're able to isolate him, if they're able to guard him, if they're able to double him, I think that shuts down everything for Illinois right there. I think Iowa could win just off of doubling him, just off of shutting him down. And it's not like you're in a case where if it's the NBA, you're dealing with a lot of other issues from the opposition. I think at the NCAA level, if you have one solid player, you lock them down. 9 times out of 10, in most cases, unless you have a star-studded team that's made up of future draft picks for a pro sport, then you're not, that's an easy, I'd say that's an easy coaching strategy for Iowa State.
Well, I'll just close out with this last thought. The key for this Illinois team is their defense. They play defense as good as any of the teams in the NBA. The Houston has the best defensive team in the tournament, but Illinois plays really, really good defense, and their offense is triggered from their defense. If they keep playing defense the way they've been, that's why I give them an edge to be able to upset Iowa State. And this, a lot of people probably think this is an upset, but if Illinois plays their game, they can win this game. Let's move on to Friday's game. Friday, March 29th. We have Marquette, number 2 Marquette versus number 11 NC State. And man, this is what I love about, a lot of people don't like the tournaments at the end of the year, but NC State was a team that had lost, I think they had lost 5 or 6, 5 out of their last 7 games going into the tournament, and they were ranked very low in the ACC tournament. And then they came into Washington, D.C. and won 5 straight games and won the ACC championship and bumped some of the teams that thought they were going to get in. They didn't get out because nobody thought NC State would be in the tournament, but they ran 5 straight through the ACC and won the ACC tournament and landed themselves in the in the big dance, in the tournament. So what I want to say about that is you always have to worry about a team that's hot, a team that's playing great at the right time of the year, and that's what the NC State Wolfpack is. They're playing great at the right time of the year. Marquette is going to be heavily favored in this game. I love Shaka Smart. I love the way he coaches. I love the way he has his team to play. Marquette is definitely the better team, and Tom the Bomb is going to take Marquette, but I would not be surprised if NC State wins this game because they're just on that roll. It's like NC State has been in the playoffs for the last 3 weeks, even before the tournament started, because it's like if you lose one game, you're going home. So they've been playing one or done for the last 3 weeks, and I think they're ready, where some of these other teams may not be. So Tom the Bomb is going to take Marquette, but don't be surprised at all if NC State and the big man down low pulls another upset. This game's going to be Thursday at 7:09 p.m. on Friday, and this game will be on CBS. Who do you like, Marquette, North Carolina State? Felix?
Well, it sounds like there's a solid case for North Carolina State. We've witnessed this dynamic time and time again in sports. Sometimes not a matter of what team's the best, but the team that plays the best. And I've said this before, usually in the sport of basketball, I've said that normally it's the best team that wins, but I'm usually saying that in the context of the NBA where we have a 4 out of 7 series. Now, if it's single elimination, that's completely different. That's where it's more so of a dynamic of football. You're looking at teams that have a hot streak carried on for a regular season going to the playoffs. I'm thinking 2007 New York Giants, something along those lines. Then I can go into sports where sometimes it's not the best team, but the hottest team that wins. You can think your 2019 St. Louis Blues, the 2019 Washington Nationals. So I would say that it looks good for North Carolina State. For me, it's kind of a toss-up. I'm not going to lie to you. But, hey, I mean, North Carolina State, if history's any indication, if your word, in your words, definitely a solid indication, I'd have to side with NC State here.
Well, I'll just end this on this. The last time that the North Carolina States won the national championship with Jim Valvano, they went on this exact same type of run, where they just marched through. They marched through the ACC tournament. They upset a Ralph Sampson team that was ranked number 1 all year long, and they just kept winning games and kept winning games. And that's what this NC State team is doing right now. So, hey, you never know. It's been a long time since NC State has been in the big show. But, hey, I'm still going with Marquette. Our next game is the Purdue Boilermakers versus Gonzaga. And Gonzaga just came off of a big win in the tournament. People think it was an upset, but it was a 4 versus a 5. Well, let's talk about Purdue, because I've talked about how the Big Ten has literally choked in this tournament. And Purdue was a number 1 seed last year, and they lost to a 16 seed. And I think they've spent the whole year being embarrassed. If I can take you back a few years back, where the University of Virginia was a number 1 seed, and they lost to the University of Maryland at Baltimore. And they were a number 1 seed, and they lost to a 16 seed. And the very next year, the University of Virginia came back and won the national championship.
Right.
Because they were so embarrassed by losing to a number 16 seed. The next year, they came back and won the national championship. That's what this Purdue team looks like. You know, they choked last year, losing from the number 1 seed in the first round, and I think those guys have been living with that all year long. We lost to a number 16 seed. And they're playing like they got a chip on their shoulder. They've got the 2-time player of the year in Zach Edney. And, you know, some of the things that people are saying about him is just ridiculous. They're saying he's just big over the weekend. My brother was telling me that he's not going to be a good NBA player because he's just 7 foot tall and that's all. And I don't buy that, okay? I don't. You know, I think for sure there's a room and a place for him in the NBA, but he's more than just a 7'4" guy, okay? So I think he's got him on his back. Big Ten doesn't do good, but I'm taking Purdue over Gonzaga. That game's going to be Thursday at 7:39 p.m. That game's also going to be on TBS, which also is True TV. I'm going to chalk. I got Purdue getting past Gonzaga. Who do you like, Felix?
You said everything that needs to be said there. I think Purdue all the way there.
All righty. Our next game is is Houston versus Lawrence Duke Blue Devils. Number 1 versus a 4. And like I mentioned to you, Houston has the best defensive team in the tournament. And this particularly applies to Houston. Their best shot is their second shot. Everybody on their team plays defense. Everybody on their team rebounds. They don't have a real scorer. So it's almost like they just throw the ball up to the basket and then everybody crashes, and then whoever gets that rebounds, they're usually in a much better position to score, and that's why their second shot is actually better than their first shot. And like I said, they're the best defensive team in the tournament, but man, when you get somebody that matches you defensively, you got to have somebody who can put the ball in the hole, and that's what worries me about this Houston team. Tom the Bomb is taking Dr. Lawrence Duke Blue Devils, and I never like to go with Duke, but Tom the Bomb is taking the Duke Blue Devils to win over the number 1 Houston team. That game's going to be Thursday at 9:39 p.m. on CBS. Who do you like, Houston or Duke, Felix?
Well, this Houston team sounds a lot. Well, you're saying something about their style of play. They're sounding similar to what I'd say of the Denver Nuggets, a team effort there. You know, you have.
Oh, but the Denver Nuggets they got scores all over. They're the NBA champs. What do you mean? You got to explain that one to me, Felix.
Oh, I'm thinking from an aspect of team effort, like it's not just one person. Okay, fine. We could take it from another angle. You can talk about how in hockey you have the Florida Panthers, and a lot of their offensive production, from what I've seen, a lot of it in the clutch moments, it comes from the ricocheted goals. They'll flood the net. They just shoot the puck at the goalie. It bounces off. The ricochet shot goes in left and right. Or I could even say, like in the case, I'm going to take it way back here. This is for the hardcore hockey fans. You can talk about Ryan Smith when he was with the Edmonton Oilers. A lot of the times, like, he would take advantage of a ricocheted shot or a shot that's in the right position. The puck's in the right position. So I didn't mean to jump from sport to sport there. But at the same time, when you're creating those opportunities to score and those build up, I think that could be really helpful. But to your point, if you don't have a solid player, like, what's the best thing to have in sports? An elite player, preferably elite players, adding to your team effort. But I'd say sometimes if the team effort's just that good, sometimes it makes up for the fact that you're outmatched. For example, outmatched in terms of star power. For example, you look at the Nuggets versus Lakers series from last year. That's what I really meant to say. I know the Nuggets have star power.
You got me scratching my head over it, Felix.
Absolutely.
You got me scratching my head over it, man.
I know the Nuggets have some star power.
They got scoring power all over, man.
But juxtapose the Nuggets star power. This is what I meant to say. Juxtapose what the Nuggets have to LeBron James, AD, right? So on and so forth. You just talk about the star power. And LeBron James by himself, you've seen what he was able to do with the Cavaliers in his time there. I know he had some help in the year he won a championship, the year he made it to the conference finals. But he was accountable for the large bulk, the lump sum of what that team was able to do. Because, like I said, 2018 finals, like, if you put up 40 points per game almost and you still get swept, that says a number of things. So going back to what I wanted to say, I'll say that even the reason I compare them to the Nuggets, even if they are outmatched in terms of star power, they are outmatched in terms of talent. Their team effort will overcome that. That's what I meant to say. I didn't mean to have you scratching your head there. You were probably thinking that, yeah.
Like, what's going on there?
All right. Because I made a few jumps there.
All righty, let's reel Felix back in.
All right.
Okay. Let's get to our next game. We have Tennessee Volunteers versus Creighton. And this is going to be one of the better games in the tournament. It's Friday at 10:09 p.m. on TBS, True TV. I like Creighton. I like Creighton in the Final Four, guys. I like Creighton making it all the way to the Final Four. This is a really, really good basketball team. They're well balanced. I like everything about this team. This team is scary to me. I think Creighton is the team you don't want to play. Tom the Bomb's taking Creighton over Tennessee. Who you like, Felix?
Like I said, for the Purdue one, I think you pretty much summed it up there with Creighton.
Okay, all righty, but Tennessee's the higher seed. I think a lot of people have Tennessee moving on here. But man, I like Creighton, man. I like their ball movement. I like their team play better than Tennessee. Tennessee has stars.
Right.
Tennessee have players. Tennessee has dogs. But Creighton, that number 11. He ain't scowling like that for nothing. Don't let the smooth taste fool you, okay? I like Creighton in this one. You go your way, but Tom the Bomb's taking Creighton in this one. Hey man, look, Deion Sanders is back in the news. Deion Sanders was on a podcast this week, and one of the questions was posed to him that if his two-star players, his son Shador and the wide receiver defensive back Hunter, were in the draft, where would they go? And Deion simply said they'd be in the top 4. They would go in the first 4 picks. Okay, and not that wasn't enough to throw out there, but he also said, but I'm not going to let them go to a certain team. I think one of the teams he was implying was the Chicago Bears, but it was one of the teams. Nobody likes the Bears.
I'll take another clue. I'm guessing no NFC East. Go on.
Maybe Washington. But he indicated that with his son, Shador, and Hunter, that both of those guys should pull an Eli Manning and what's the guy in Denver, number 7 in Denver? John Elway, and basically force their way to the team that they want to be on. And if they get picked by a team that they don't want, that they should just say, I'm not going there to play. And that just kind of like really got everybody all upset, because it's like, who are these young college players trying to determine where they can go? Being in the NFL is a privilege and an honor, and whatever team drafts you, you should be happy to go there and play. But hey, man, times are changing with the NIL money. I mean, just this past year, Marvin Harrison Jr. They offered him almost $20 million to stay at Ohio State. Because the NIL money is that big. And I don't care who he plays for in the NFL, they're not going to give him $20 million in his first year.
Right.
So this NIL, it's changing sports. To me, it's kind of, and I'm not upset about the NIL, because the kids should have been getting paid for years and years, and they're just getting, like that old saying, there ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun. And now that these young men are now getting paid in college, the establishment just doesn't like it. It reminds me of the PGA Tour versus LIV. The establishment doesn't like it that these young men are now making millions and millions of dollars while they're in college. So what's your thought on Shador and Hunter maybe going in the top 4 if they were in the draft? And then what do you feel about them trying to dictate what team they should go to? What's your thoughts on that?
I'm going to say this. It's a lot like what you see today. It's a lot of just a lot of the backlash from this. It's just manufactured reactionary outrage. Like, John Elway did this in the past. You can say the same thing to John Elway, and I kind of agree with this whole school of thought thing. It's a privilege to play in the NFL. Win or lose, you get paid a lot of money. And it's an opportunity. It's an experience. Like, I understand the school of thought, and I agree with it, but at the same time, if somebody wants to say, okay, I don't want this situation, I want to go for that, that's their decision, number one. And if they can leverage power to make that happen, they should be able to go for it. But here's my thing. If you believe against it, well, I can't really say anything against you, but at the same time, you have to be consistent. You have to, if you're going to say this about the new up-and-coming players, you out of your mouth, you have to call John Elway. You have to call him a diva. You have to call him by whatever adjective you want to throw around. You have to say the same thing to Eli Manning. You have to say the same thing to every single athlete that makes a demand. Every single athlete that made you could even leverage the same thing to Tom Brady. He's offered to take pay cuts just so he could have a team around him, but a team around him for what? For Super Bowls for him. That was still, even though that wasn't money, that was to his own gain. That was to his own benefit. Although it wasn't with money. Again, like, you would just have to be consistent in the judgments, whether or not it's from one school of thought or another. You can't just apply it to, okay, I don't like what this generation is doing, I can go further with that, or I don't like it when one person does it, but I'm okay with it in another scenario. That's my issue, because they're just following what someone on television says, oh, I think that they're such and such and such, and they're just mirroring that without actually going through the whole thought process, thinking about it for themselves. That's what bothers me, not even the difference of opinion, but the fact that it's, again, manufactured outrage that they're told to have.
Alrighty, okay, there we go. Hey, look, we're wrapping up the show today with Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball is kicking off on Thursday. Woohoo! You know Tom the Bomb's a seam head. So the Major League Baseball season is officially kicking off coming up on Thursday. And on Felix's show, the Washington Sports Den, he actually gave his preview for his Washington Nationals. So on the Tom the Bomb show, hey, I'm going to give you my quick update on my St. Louis Cardinals, okay? So the St. Louis Cardinals are relying on an old rotation and old school approach. So they're rolling out with their starting rotation. One of the things, for the first time, and I get this, that a lot of fans, especially when I talk to my friends in the Chicago area, they go, because, they're Cubs fans or they're White Sox fans, and they hate the Cardinals. They hate St. Louis. Number one, because they win a lot. And they say, you guys are spoiled. We would kill to have the season that you guys have. Well, for the first time in a long time, the St. Louis Cardinals finished dead last in the Central Division. Dead last. That hasn't happened in a long time. So one of the things that the front office said, we're going to go out and we're going to fix the pitching staff, which they should have done 2 years ago. So we're going to start off with the pitching staff. So they went out and they signed Sonny Gray as their number one. The problem that I have with that is Sonny Gray should have been their number two. I like Sonny Gray, but Sonny Gray is not a number one ace in the major leagues. He's a great, great number two, but he's not a number one. So they went out and signed Sonny Gray. I think in the number two spot they got Miles Michaelis. A lot of people don't like him. I like him because he doesn't walk people. He throws strikes, and he's going to make you hit the ball. And the Cardinals always have a great defense. And when you put the ball in play, you put that great defense behind you. They went back and they re-signed Lance Lynn. They should have never let Lance Lynn go. I think they wasted Lance Lynn good years with other teams. So this team has gotten really, really, really old. They brought in Kyle Gibson from Baltimore. I was hoping Felix was going to tell you a little bit about Kyle Gibson. And then I think Steven Matz, the left-hander, may get in that number 5 spot. That's going to be juggled and adjusted to see who's going to be in that number 5 spot. But here's the thing. They have one of the oldest pitching staffs in baseball. That's the issue, okay, with the pitching staff. What do you know about Kyle Gibson? Can you give us anything on Kyle Gibson? Because, I really just don't know much about him because he played with the Orioles last year, and there's no baseball in Washington, D.C. That's what the owner of the Orioles say.
Right.
Can you share anything about Kyle Gibson at all?
Well, I could say this regarding Kyle Gibson. I think it goes a little further than just him, if I may. Mm-hmm. I think I like what the Cardinals are doing, and Kyle Gibson's a part of this. When you say they have the oldest pitching rotation in the MLB, they're going for confirmed talent. They're doing the opposite of what the Nationals are doing. The Nationals right now, they're trying to set up the future. I think what the Cardinals want to do, they want to win now, based on what I'm seeing with the pitching rotation. Mm-hmm. The only issue is that if you have an older pitching rotation, you need to do the same thing to their batting rotation. You need to bolster your offense as well. If the Cardinals are not doing that with their offense, bolstering their offense, trying to win right now, getting everything together, that pitching rotation after a few years is going to be emaciated, then back to square one, and it kind of defeats the whole purpose of what they were doing to begin with. So again, if you're signing older players, you're looking to win.
Older players. They are signing really
looking to win.
old players, really old players. They do have some new talent. They're turning the shortstop over to rookie Mason Wynn. And they're moving Tommy Edman from shortstop to center field to make room for Mason Wynn. But in another old move, they also signed Brandon Crawford of the San Francisco Giants, who's the guy that I've loved his whole career. Great, steady baseball player, but he's at the end of his career. He's much older. So they signed Brandon Crawford as an insurance for Mason Wynn. But they also signed Matt Carpenter, who played most of his career with the Cardinals, and then they finally got rid of him, and now they're bringing him back. Now, the shift ruined Matt Carpenter's career, and now that they're no longer allowed to use the shift, maybe that'll add a few more years on to Matt Carpenter. I'm hoping I'm wrong about this, but I've always liked Matt Carpenter, but I'm not happy to see him back in the St. Louis uniform. I'm really not. Hopefully this year they're going to totally turn the catching over to Wilson Contreras, and they won't throw him under the bus like they did to him last year. I think if they leave Wilson Contreras alone, he'll be fine. Wilson Contreras came in replacing Yadier Molina, a St. Louis legend, and then now you're comparing him to Yadi. Wilson Contreras is never going to be what Yadi Molina was defensively. But by the same token, Yadi Molina is never going to be what Wilson Contreras is offensively. So you lose something defensively with Yadi, but what you're losing defensively, you're going to gain offensively with Wilson Contreras. So leave him alone and let him hit. He's going to make his errors behind the plate, but leave him alone and let him hit. At second base, they got a two-head monster going with Nolan Gorman and Brendan Donovan. Nolan Gorman is going to hit 30 home runs and drive in 100 RBIs. If you can get that kind of production from your second baseman, I don't care if he doesn't play great defense. If my second baseman hits 30 bombs and drives in 100 RBIs, I want that guy at second base because he's really a third baseman, but nobody's going to move Nolan Arenado out. So they got him at second base. But I think you'll work Brendan Donovan. Brendan Donovan is going to be the Major League Baseball's, he's going to win the Best Utility Award because Brendan Donovan can play everywhere. He can play second. He can play short. He can play first. He can play third. He can play left, center, and right. And he can catch. Brendan Donovan, and he's a good contact hitter as well. So they're going to kind of flip-flop Nolan Gorman and Brendan Donovan at second base. I told you they're moving Tommy Edman to center field. They got the mainstays at the corners. They need Goldschmidt to come back to his MVP season. And Nolan Arenado hit 278. He hit 30-plus bombs. He drove in 99 RBIs, and he feels like that's a bad season. Really, he feels like that's a bad season because he feels like he's a 300 hitter. So if we can get the mainstays to come back, we got the young players in right field. They got some promising guys coming up out of the system. I'm not real confident. I just don't like what the front office did because, baseball is always good pitching beats good hitting.
Always.
And I don't feel like they have the pitching because in St. Louis, forget about winning the division. We want to go to the playoffs and go to the World Series. That's where St. Louis sights are set. And they didn't do enough to get past the Atlanta Braves. They didn't do enough to get past the LA Dodgers. But we will see. Miles Michaelis is selling wolf tickets already, talking about the Dodgers. I'm like, what's wrong with you, man? Why you don't be kicking a sleeping dog, man? Them the Dodgers, man. They buy everything. So that's our quick update on the St. Louis Cardinals. It'll be interesting, kind of like what Felix said on his show. I think by Memorial's Day, we're going to know everything we need to know about our St. Louis Cardinals. And if they aren't at the top of the division by then, I think they need to start playing some of those young guys, just like Felix said. That's why he's here, because he's sharp like that. You want to close? You got any closing thoughts, Felix?
Hey, that's pretty much, you said what had to be said. I mean, you got it.
Alrighty. Hey, man, that's our show for today. Hey, thanks for watching. We appreciate your support. We didn't have any trivia questions. Hey, look, for a dynamic, in-depth analysis and highlights for the Washington football team and sports in D.C. sports, make sure you check out the Washington Sports Den on Thursdays at 2 p.m. on WBGR with my main man, Felix Bassey. There he is in person. Hey, man, time flies when you're having fun. We're out of time here, but we sure do thank you for spending your time with us. Listen, may the gates of heaven open and pour an abundance of blessings down on you where there won't be room enough to contain it. Remember, if you want it, you got to confess it with your mouth and believe it in your heart that Jesus died on the cross and that he rose on the third day, not a Thursday, right, Felix? Just for you. Remember,
Amen.
Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. And hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Felix, I'm sorry, Coy, can you close me out with those birthday pictures real quick? Will you do me a fast? Tom the Bomb was home this weekend, and you know, I was home because of my brother's birthdays. I got a big family, and everybody in the family seems to be born in March. So Marva was March 6th, and Nate was my big brother Nate was March 16th, and Steve's birthday was the 21st, and Robert's the 22nd, and Curtis is coming up later in March. So I was home with my brothers for their birthdays over the weekend, and we had a good time. It's always good to spend time with the family. Stevie, Nate, I enjoyed you guys. Happy birthday. I love you guys. I came home just for you, Steve. I came home just for you. I love you guys. It was a great weekend. Got to see Suge Avery. Got to bite her jaws. It was always great to be at home, man. God bless you guys. We'll see you guys at this same time on the same bat channel. You guys have a blessed and good evening. Good night.
I'm about to blow up. I'm the bomb and about to blow up. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Everybody sing it out. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Everybody sing it out. Whoa, whoa. Okay, 1 for the morning and a 2 for the show, but 3 to be a legend even if I'm cold. I ain't chasing nothing, you gon' have to catch me. And if you wanna taste, you gon' have to pay a fee. I'm the bomb and about to blow up. I'm the bomb and about to blow up.